Hello everyone, I'm back with a new tutorial. We will continue where we left off last time. And that is, let me just show you. So we had this dashboard, and on the main page we had some login functionality. So this time what we are going to do, we will go to the database and display a set of records, every record from the database table, and we will display that as a table on the screen here, so that you know how to handle that kind of situation when you want to display a huge array of objects that are retrieved, fetched from the database. And we're going to do this actually three ways. And one way is we just very simply display it. Another way is that we are going to create an API. It's going to be a RESTful API or REST API, and we'll very simply just return and display the JSON representation of the database table. And the third way will be that we're gonna create a page where we click a button and we retrieve this API with Ajax and display with JavaScript on the screen. So these are the three ways, and I'm doing this because I got a request on YouTube from one of you guys to create this RESTful basic service. So that's what we're going to do. RESTful is about a lot more than just this, but overall we're going to be doing something that is serializable, which is one of the requirements. And on the other hand, this thing will going to return always the same result. It's just basically fetching data from the database, and you can move on. Of course, you can change that and create your post and get and different kind of endpoints and all this stuff. But I think what we do, it's gonna be a small scope, but you can build on top of this. So let's go and do this. So this is what we did last time. This is the standard example from Bootstrap. And I think it's just a bit too much, so let's remove some stuff from the navigation HTML. I have added another as a separate file. That was your homework to create this, and I hope you created it. So let's go. These are the navigation items here. So first of all, what I want to do, I just want to comment out everything that we don't need, because this just looks too disturbing. Okay, so let's check the results. Oh wow, beautiful. Okay, so the first thing we do is that we display messages from the database on a UI. So this is basically an F3 template, and let's say that we link this to messages. Just very simply, let's call this messages. So if you refresh that, you see this is going to be this scenario. And you probably already know what the next step is. I hope you know that. So let's open up the routes and we add another route. So we do get messages, and that means that what I specify here, messages, this link, this route will take us to the class and function that I specify here. And my decision is that I will put that into the main controller. So I don't want to create a new controller for this, but you actually could. So, and then let's call this display messages, just very simply. Okay, so let's take this. This is the name of the function that we need to implement now. So we go to our main controller. I hope it's not too fast. If it's too fast, please go back to the previous tutorials, because right now I think this speed is fine. Alright, as you see, I have added a lot of PHP doc comments. The main purpose was here to make it easier to understand for you on GitHub. So I will create a new function, and I call it display messages. And in this function, what I will do I actually need to render a new screen here. So if I click here, this part of the page needs to be different. So that means that I will actually need another template as well later on. So, but first of all, let's fetch the messages from the database. So messages equals new messages. You know, this class here is the model, the messages model class that we created before, and we pass one argument, and that is the DB. So this way we have a reference to the messages mapper class, and we have all the database table mapped into this messages variable on this line. Okay, so the next one is when we render the template, we will have to have this messages variable passed to the template. So we set a variable called messages, and what we pass here, messages and all. You remember that all fetches all the data from the table, so every single row. Then the next one, we need to set another variable, and that is the template name. You remember last time when we created the template hierarchy, we need to provide the name of the view that we will render in the middle. So if you see in the normal render function here, we are rendering the dashboard HTML. And now we are going to render different HTML, and that we call, it doesn't exist, so let's give it a name. Let's call it messages HTM. Alright, and then what we need to do is just very simply copy and paste these two lines because it's exactly the same. So this is underscore, yeah, because we don't have function documentation. You know what? Now you have it. I will update this later on. I don't want to spend time on this now. So we create a new view, messages HTM, and in this view all we need to do is gonna be very similar to the dashboard HTM, meaning that this is the Bootstrap standard, and on this line what you see here, that this div, the content of this div, this entire HTM is contained within this div, and the placement here is that this is the navigation, this is the top heading, and what you see in this HTML file is the white background box here in the middle, the content itself. So if we want to occupy the same space, we need to use a div that is exactly like this one. And this is the width of this div. You know, it's like 9 columns, and on the medium screen it's 10 columns, and there is an offset. So the offset means that this, you know, this is the offset. So that's why it's positioned next to the navigation bar. So I take this, just I hope you can follow. It's not rocket science, but I will show it to you and then you will see. So messages UI from templates, this is gonna be the title, and now what I need to close that div. Okay, so what is supposed to happen now? If I click this, then we should have, you see, this is the new page and this is the title. So this stuff is this stuff here. Okay, so not a big deal yet, and it won't be a big deal anyway. Alright, so how to display data from the database. In the first, or actually I think it was two tutorials before this one, we have already displayed something from the DB, but we never displayed multiple records. So let's learn something about Fat-Free. It's called repeat. and repeat has a group. Group meaning group is the object that you want to iterate over, and now we are iterating over this messages, all the messages from the database, this one. So we call it messages. So in the group, what we do, we provide this and say messages, and then we say value. This is all this stuff is fat-free stuff. So if you go to like fat-free template language, I still want you to understand where you can get information, so that's why I'm doing this. So you go to the Fat-Free site, and then you go repeat, repeating segments here. Then this is what we are doing, right? So repeat, group, and value. So this is how we do it. You can find the same information on the Fat-Free site. So let's go back. So repeat is the object, value is the single value. So in every iteration, we will get an object that we call message. Yeah, it makes sense, right? In the messages, repeat, we call it message. Okay, repeat. Oh, okay, now it looks better. And what we're gonna do is that in the within the repeat, I just want to repeat the messages, basically. So if you remember the table structure, I guess you don't, it has actually 3 fields. The first one is ID, the next one is title, I believe, or key. No, sorry, the next one is key, and the third one is message. So let's do it like this. So in every iteration, we display a paragraph with the message from the database. So let's, oh sorry, yeah, this is a different programming language. So if I refresh this, you see, it's immediately here. It's as simple as this. You have all the messages from the database, and this is yeah, this is generated automatically. So it's all the same, always the same, but it's fine. But what I can do to convince you that these are actually different lines from the DB, let's go like message ID, and then where are you? Bang, you see, this is the ID that's also coming from the database. And now what we could do, yeah, there is another field in the database called key, and bang, you see, hello world, second message. All right, so that's the way we do this. Fine, fantastic. Okay, I don't like this. It looks better without the key. Okay, so first thing is done. Next thing is, let's display a JSON representation of this data. So what we do, let's go back to the navigation and turn this navigation item into this JSON Ajax call. So how are we gonna do that? Let's just imagine a scenario where we have to create an API. So if you want to create a RESTful API, you probably create some endpoints. This is what they're called. They are called API endpoints. So API/messages. So if you make a decision, for example, that every endpoint on your API will be under API/some endpoint, then this is one way to do this. Okay, and then let's call this messages JSON API. Okay, let's say rest, so that we can make the distinction between this one and then the next one, the Ajax one in the next part. And so the next step is that we have to define these routes. So again, we only want to allow get requests, main controller, and in the main controller now we need to define another function. So let's call this API messages. And in the API messages, that is the place where we return the JSON representation of the data from the database tables. Okay, so let's go to the main controller. Sorry, just want to make a copy and paste this because I want to make sure that we do exactly the same. Yeah, this stuff is from the previous tutorial. It's just commented out, and let's get rid of this. Okay, so function API messages. I'm just thinking too fast. All right, and so the next thing we want to do, we need to have a reference to the messages. So we create a new instance of this mapper because again we need to retrieve the messages. And then now instead of rendering a layout, actually we are not going to render a template layout at all. So why is that? Because if you are using a RESTful API, you have probably noticed that usually what you get is just a JSON. So there is no layout, no HTML at all, but this is blank white and there is some JSON character string here in your browser. And this is exactly what we want. We just want to return JSON string. Okay, so we are not going to render. First of all, we are going to just retrieve all the data from this table, as we have done before. And now what we need to do, echo, because this is what we do, just echo the stuff out, JSON encode, and now it's supposed to be $data, right? Because it should be as easy as this, because this is just a PHP object. This is actually an array of associative arrays, so it's just an array of objects. The truth is that this is not going to work, and I tell you why. Let's try this. So I refresh this thing. Okay, this is the overview page. Oh, sorry, let's overview is not working, and I know why, because there is no link here in overview, but I'm gonna fix it. So I'm gonna make it clear for you. So this is the dashboard. This is the first thing that we have done before, and this is the new one. So okay, this is not yet the issue. The issue is different. This is something that is just a typo. All right, so you see, now this is the issue. That is going to be all empty objects. It's an array of empty objects. So but the number 80 something, I'm not sure if it is 80 something empty objects, but the reason for this is that messages returns here. Where is all? This is all. So what we return here is just the query from the mapper, and the query PHP, unfortunately, or actually by design, works in a way that if the object that you are working on has some private parameters or private attributes or protected attributes, then you will not be able to serialize that with JSON encode. So what we got to do here is that we need to create another version of this, and there are a lot of ways to do that. I will do a very simple way. So this is not the best practice or not over optimized at all, but it's gonna work. So, and for me actually it's totally acceptable to do it like this. So for each, what we want to do is that we take that data and we will put all the elements. So for every item in this data array, we will put every object into a new array that we call JSON. Because here we have access to everything, and then in the end we will be able to serialize that JSON. So okay, let's do it like this immediately. So JSON is going to be the end result, and in for each, let's call every data row, because these are database table rows, so that's why I call this. And item is gonna be another placeholder here, because item is the new object item that finally I will push into this JSON. Okay, let me just let me write this and then you will see what I mean. So then we go to row and $key $value, and what I want to do is that $item $key equals $value, and here I want to array push $JSON $item. If you are confused, then just please listen to me. So what we do, we take this data, this is an array as you see here, so it's an array of objects. We take that, and for each element of this data array we say that this we call a row, and for every row what we do, that we split it up to key and value pairs, because this is what it is. It's an object. It's a hash array, so it has keys and values. And for every key and value, we assign that key and value to another array item. So row in the end will be translated to item, and we push that in every iteration. We push that item to JSON. So in the end, JSON is gonna be the representation of the original data. And this object is already serializable, sorry. And so we can do JSON encode on top of this. Okay, so if I just come here and refresh this stuff, okay, refresh it here, and we go to this API, and now you see what we have here. This is JSON. This is the JSON representation of the data in our database. It's 82, yeah, it's 82 lines, and this is just how an API should work. You will just get JSON back. Okay, so now this is done, and you see the hard part, I mean the F3 specific part is very simple. When you create an API, you just do it the same way as you would do with any other address. So you specify an address, you specify a function, and in that function, instead of rendering a layout template, you will basically just echo a JSON serializable object, and that's it. So now that we got that done, let's go for the next one and the last one. So what is the third solution we want to provide here? Let's go to our navigation and let me define this for you. So the next one will be that we want to create a page like this one, but without the data first. We just want to have a big button here somewhere, and if we click that button, we go to this API and get the data via an Ajax call. So we need a template, but that template has nothing to do with the API. We just need to render a page with a button. That is what we want to do, and all the rest is already there in the API, so we just want to invoke that API via Ajax and in JavaScript. So in order to achieve this, we need to have another menu item. And where should we put that? Let's put this after this line. So Lee, thank you, and a ref. Let's call this one messages Ajax view. Why is that? I mean, it's important, you know, names are important, but why is it so important for me to call it this? It is important because these two are essentially different. This is an API call that returns a JSON. This is a view. This is the same category as the view above. Actually, I will put it here like this, because that's just a view, and that view will not be doing too much, just render a button and the title. So messages Ajax view, that's what we got here, plus we need to add messages UI from Ajax, or with Ajax, yeah, whatever. And now we need to create these routes. So again, we do get, sorry, let me double check. Yeah, I got the slash there and not here. Okay, so this is gonna be in main controller, and after in the main controller, let's say that this is display messages Ajax view. That's gonna be the new function. So we just display that view. So let's go to the main controller and implement this function. All right. So what we do here, function, and then paste the name of that function, and then let's start this. So what we want to do, we just want to render a template, and that means that we just take these 3 lines that renders the template and put it into this function. All right, but we are not rendering the messages HTM, we will render a new one, and let's call it messages Ajax HTM. So it's gonna be a different HTM. So let's go and create that file. New file, messages Ajax HTM. All right, and we will do the same way as we have done before. So let's take it from here and paste it, but instead of repeating and displaying these things, messages UI with Ajax, let's rename it Ajax. Okay, and let's add the button, and this is going to be a bootstrap button. So it works in a way that it has to have a type, so button type button, and in the class attribute we press a btn default, and btn large. So this is gonna be a large bootstrap button, and let's add some text, fetch messages, and then close this button. Okay, so this is gonna be a button that will fetch messages. What else we will need? So what we do, we push this button and then we fetch the data, and then we need to put it somewhere. So we need to define a place where to put it. And that thing will be, okay, let's do it this way, message container, and then let me just show you, I just hit tab and this is what I get. So this is a container, it has an ID, ID meaning is a unique identifier. Of course, if you specify one like this, then it's a unique identifier. So this is how we're gonna find this div, and we put everything inside this div. Okay, so let's check if it's working so far. UI with Ajax and message UI with Ajax and fetch images. If we click this one, nothing happens. Why is that? Because we need to add some code. Alright, so how we add that code? First of all, we need to add JavaScript to our project. It's not yet there because we never had it before. So the thing is that we need a new folder, and not here, but here. Alright, and in that folder we need a file, and F3, this is called F3 sample project, so let's call it F3 sample.js. And what we need to do, we need to include that file, that script, into our site. So before we can move on, we need to add some stuff here. And in our JavaScript, I decided to use jQuery. So let's find the CDN for this. I hope I will find it quickly. Okay, it seems it's gonna be quick. Okay, so this is jQuery. jQuery is a library, is a JavaScript library that we use to modify the document object model of the website. That means that we can modify the website content, work with the website content, and do some extra stuff like add data and change layout and many things. So if you never met jQuery, I think then you are probably really a beginner. Just read about it. It's a very popular JavaScript library. Okay, so we included jQuery because we're going to use it, and app.js, and we call that F3 sample.js. So this is the stuff that we just created, our own JavaScript. Alright, so if I refresh this guy here, and something is wrong. So what's wrong? Oh, this is wrong. Sorry guys, that's my mistake. Alright, so if I just go to the developer tools and look at the resources, so jQuery is here, and our own app, this is under app.js, F3 sample.js. It's supposed to be here as well. And okay, now we are there. Okay, so our file is included. We are good to go. So let's implement this JS file. So what we do here is that we use this jQuery notation. What it means, I mean, you know, it is out of scope of this tutorial to teach you JavaScript or jQuery. But what I had just put here, these lines means that on the document, when the document is loaded, so when the page is loaded, then the things that are here will be executed in JavaScript. So if I just put an alert here, and that says hello with double L, and refresh this page, then I get this alert hello. Okay, so what we're gonna do here, I wanna put event listeners here. So this is not the place, you know, to execute like hello alerts or whatever functionality. This is basically the place where you put event listeners. So when the page loads, this one here, then those listeners will be added, and if they are added, then you know certain events will trigger certain actions, and that's how we want to build our solution. So I say that on a button, so in a button when there is a click event, click, so on a button click, let's execute this function that I'm specifying here. Maybe this looks a little weird, but you can get used to it. It makes total sense. So what happens is that in the HTML, let's close header because we don't need this one. Okay, so in this HTML, I have a button. And what I've written here, that if I push any button, actually any button on the website, so this is not really specific, but you can give that button a class or an ID, of course with a different string, and that's going to be very specific. I want to keep stuff more generic, and I would actually use some other ways to specify this, but right now this website is small, so we stick with this button, and we create HTML. It's a variable. It's going to be an HTML string, and I created this because on the Ajax HTM file, if I after I push the button, sorry, then I want to put that HTML string between these, within the div here. So that's what we're gonna do. And I create a string because jQuery can put string information into an element, into an HTML element, like a div, for example. And that's why the div has an ID, because on that one I want to be really specific. So I just copy and paste it for later reference, because we're gonna need this. So just don't mind this, I just put it here for myself. And now the next thing is that we're gonna create an Ajax request. So if I'm not mistaken, I have some snippets here. Yep. Okay, so this is an Ajax snippet, and the method is get. The URL is http localhost port 8000 /API /messages. Let's think about this for a minute. So this address is API /messages, and we know this address very well. It is this one. So this address returns this JSON. And so what I want here in JavaScript is that I want to get that JSON. I want to have in this response, I want to have this as an object. I want to have this object. That's all. That's what I'm saying. And right now the API and the layout is on the same website. In reality, in reality, these things would be on two different websites. So you would have this one, this layout on your own site. You would be in charge of this. And these things would be on someone else's site, an API endpoint, and you would use that API endpoint to get the data. All right, but today it's a much simplified scenario. So let's stick with this. In the data, you know, if you wanna provide some query parameters, like whatever you wanna put at the end of this, you can specify that in the data. Okay, but right now we don't have any parameters, so that's not really an issue. Let's remove this and let's say JSON, because I want to have JSON back. And on success, yeah, this is the important part, but what happens on error? Unfortunately, this snippet is missing the error part, and I really wanna have something here. And what I wanna have is actually is pretty standard. So what I want to have is jQuery. Here I want to have a status and the error. So these are the error attributes. These are the attributes that are passed to the error function in an Ajax call. And if there is some issue, I just want to be notified with an alert. So I'll say error, and then plus we use all the information available to us to see response text, to see what's going on. And these are not going to be functional errors. So this is not the error that you define in your controller, because I could actually define an error message also here in the API call, because you see I return a JSON, just the data. But if something is wrong, then I can return an error in this JSON, and then the place to handle that in jQuery is in the success part, because the call itself was successful, but content-wise there was an error. So those kind of functional errors are supposed to be handled here. These are more like connectivity errors, network errors, and all these things that prevent you from actually doing that call and see the functional response. So having said that, let's move on to this part. So I want to take this response, and this is a JSON array that we know very well, but let's have a look at it again. I'm sorry, here. So this is an array of objects. So what I want to do, I want to iterate over this, meaning that I come here inside JavaScript, and sometimes it's just confusing to write JavaScript after PHP. But I hope it's not gonna be that bad. What's wrong with you? Unexpected identifier. Okay. Let's move on, because this is supposed to be working. Okay, so HTML. So what I want to do for every iteration, what I want to do is to add some stuff to the HTML. And what I want to add is a paragraph plus the message from the array plus the closing tag for the paragraph. And I put a semicolon here. And after this, what I want to do is $, and then now we come here to the container. So this is the time after the HTML is complete, I want to add that, set that HTML into the container. And this is how we do that. So I take this container, this is the identifier, and say that HTML content of this container is going to be this HTML string. This is what it means. Okay, and I'm not really relaxed about this parsing error unexpected identifier. Okay, this is just code validation, so it's I'm really not sure if it's gonna work or not, but it should be working. Let's check if it works. Okay, so if I come here and click fetch messages, then voila, these are all the messages from the database, and we got these messages via Ajax. So okay, this is something is wrong with the linter. I don't care. I mean, the stuff is working, and it's what's more important. And let's go like add something more. Let's add the ID as well, because also in the previous one we added the ID. Let's add the space between those two. And if I refresh, I get this empty. So I click the button, and now I have the ID next to it. Okay, so we have implemented 3 different ways of displaying data, several rows, or all the data from a database table. So we have implemented this with the F3 Fat-Free way, with the REST API way. So this is how you create an API. And the last thing is that this is how you implement an Ajax call to a REST API from Fat-Free, but it actually doesn't have anything to do with Fat-Free, or most of the stuff is done on jQuery. But it's important you understand how jQuery and Fat-Free can work together. So good luck to you. I hope it was useful and valuable to you, and hope to see you soon. Good luck.